Today we expose the 7 ketchup chip brands Canada needs to be warned about. Products that have turned one of the nation's most beloved snacks into chemical experiments covered in artificial dyes and monosodium glutamate. Ketchup chips are part of Canadian identity, right alongside maple syrup and hockey. Americans don't even sell them. Frito-Lay refuses to bring ketchup chips south of the border. The flavor flopped in America, but exploded here, especially in Manitoba, where it became almost a religion. This snack was invented in the early 1970s by Hostess Potato Chips, a Canadian company near Cambridge, Ontario. They experimented with grape and orange-flavored chips that failed miserably. But when they dusted potatoes with tangy tomato powder, Canadians went crazy. It became an instant hit that defines Canadian snacking to this day. But not all ketchup chips are created equal. Some brands have replaced real tomato flavor with artificial garbage. They've loaded chips with monosodium glutamate, synthetic dyes banned in other countries, and preservatives linked to health problems. Artificial food dyes like Allura Red and Sunset Yellow found in many ketchup chips have been linked to hyperactivity in children by University of Southampton researchers. The European Union requires warning labels on products with these dyes. Canada requires nothing. First up is Lay's ketchup chips, the most popular ketchup chip brand in all of Canada. How can the most popular brand be on the worst list? Because popularity doesn't equal quality. Lay's dominates through marketing power and distribution, not through actually making the best ketchup chips. Frito-Lay is owned by PepsiCo, an American corporation headquartered in New York. When you buy Lay's ketchup chips, your money goes to American shareholders, not Canadian businesses. The Eat North comprehensive taste test had devastating things to say about Lay's. Their panel concluded that the flavor was less of a ketchup taste, but much more of an abrasive white vinegar taste. One panelist described them as tasting like sweet nothing, and not in a good way. Only one member of the panel correctly identified Lay's during blind testing, the most common ketchup chip in the entire country, and professional tasters couldn't even recognize it. The flavor is that forgettable. The Narcity reviewer said Lay's were far from the best. The chips were described as very dusty, with a color more brown than red. They said it tasted more like tomato than actual ketchup. Now the ingredients. Lay's ketchup chips contain monosodium glutamate, the flavor enhancer that makes chips addictive. They contain lactose, meaning people with dairy sensitivities might react. They contain multiple artificial colors including amaranth, Allura Red, Sunset Yellow FCF, and indigotein. Those artificial colors are the real scandal. Allura Red and Sunset Yellow are part of the Southampton 6 dyes that British researchers linked to hyperactivity in children. In the European Union, products with these dyes must carry warning labels stating they may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. Canada requires no such warnings. You might be giving your kids Lay's ketchup chips, not knowing the artificial dyes have been scientifically linked to behavioral problems. Lay's also contains disodium guanylate and disodium inosinate, flavor enhancers that work with monosodium glutamate to make chips more addictive. The addictive quality is engineered, not accidental. Scientists at these companies specifically formulate chips so you literally cannot stop eating them. PepsiCo spokesperson Sherry Morgan admitted to Vice that Lay's proudly produces millions of bags of ketchup chips annually at facilities across Ontario, Alberta, Nova Scotia, and Quebec. Millions of bags loaded with artificial dyes and monosodium glutamate. Old Dutch won the Eat North Ketchup Chip Challenge outright with outstanding flavor and crunch. Yet most Canadians buy Lay's simply because it's everywhere. We're choosing convenience over quality, marketing over taste, American corporations over Canadian tradition. Second is Ruffles Double Crunch Ketchup Chips. This might surprise some people because Ruffles is generally respected in the chip world, but their ketchup offering has serious problems. The Ruffles Double Crunch line is marketed as delivering 2 times the crunch. Sounds great, right? Wrong. Chatelaine magazine tested this chip, and nearly half of their entire testing team wrote too crunchy in their tasting notes, but crunchy isn't the right word. These chips were described as cracker hard and almost difficult to chew. When a potato chip is too hard to comfortably eat, something has gone seriously wrong. These aren't chips anymore, they're dental hazards. The Narcity reviewer described the Ruffles ketchup chips as simultaneously crunchy and soggy. How is that even possible? When you open the bag, you smell salt and vinegar instead of ketchup, which is extremely concerning for a product labeled as ketchup flavor. Chatelain's testers said the generous seasoning didn't quite hit all the right ketchup notes. One food stylist said, "This tastes like cheese." Another tester thought it was closer to all-dressed flavor than actual ketchup. When professional food testers can't identify your ketchup chips as ketchup, you have a major problem. The Bear Viking review blog described the Ruffles ketchup flavor as reminiscent of a middle-aged person using too much perfume or cologne and just really laying it on a bit too thick. The seasoning overwhelms everything and doesn't taste like the ketchup Canadians know and love. Looking at the ingredients, Ruffles Double Crunch ketchup contains sugar listed before tomato powder. That means there's more sugar than actual tomato in the seasoning. They also include sodium acetate, monosodium glutamate, and multiple artificial colors to achieve that unnatural coating. Texture problem is so severe that one reviewer said, "You probably don't want to eat these at work because someone will give you dirty looks for being too noisy. These chips are loud from how hard they've been fried." That's not a feature. It's a manufacturing defect marketed as innovation. Ruffles is owned by Frito-Lay, which is owned by PepsiCo. They have the resources to make quality ketchup chips. They clearly chose not to. The Double Crunch line tends to be more expensive than regular chips, so you're paying extra money for a worse product. You're being charged more for chips that are harder to eat and taste wrong. Third is Pringles ketchup chips. First, let's address what Pringles actually are. They're not technically potato chips. The FDA made them admit this back in 1975. Pringles are made from dried potatoes, cornstarch, wheat starch, and rice flour pressed into that saddle shape. They're formed from industrial-grade potato sludge pressed through machines. Pringles launched their ketchup flavor in Canada in 2017, arriving late to a party that had been going on since the 1970s. And when they finally showed up, they showed up wrong. Chatelain magazine tested 11 ketchup chip brands and had devastating things to say about Pringles. Their testers noted the chips were quite pale and under-seasoned with very little ketchup flavor. When a chip company that specializes in heavy seasoning releases an under-seasoned product, something went seriously wrong. The Narcity taste test was even more brutal. Their reviewer said, "You can't call these Pringles ketchup chips because there was hardly any ketchup on the chip. It's as if it was sprinkled on half of the chip and the other side had nothing on it. They took half a bite and put the whole tube down." The reviewer said it tasted more like BBQ flavor than actual Heinz ketchup. The Narcity reviewer literally suggested Pringles cancel them from production. The Nanaimo food blog compared eating Pringles ketchup to licking a McDonald's napkin with ketchup residue on it. They wrote that Pringles ketchup are reminiscent of McKetchup napkins. Authentic, sure, but gross too. They pointed out the chips are basically white with barely any visible seasoning. Mr. Pringle apparently decided to only give you 3 chips worth of seasoning for each entire tube. There's barely any flavor. Pringles are owned by Kellogg's, an American company based in Michigan. So you're getting under-seasoned chemical crisps while supporting an American corporation profiting from Canada's national chip flavor. The can design creates massive amounts of plastic waste too. Regular chip bags can sometimes be recycled, but Pringles cans with mixed materials are basically impossible to recycle properly. At around $4 for a tube with barely any ketchup flavor, Pringles are possibly the worst value in the entire market. Fourth is President's Choice ketchup chips from Loblaws. Now you might be thinking, didn't some reviews say PC chips are good? Yes, and that's the confusing part. PC actually makes 2 different ketchup chip products, and they're very different in quality. The PC loads of ketchup rippled chips consistently get good reviews. Multiple taste tests ranked them surprisingly high. The Nanaimo food blog said they almost toppled Old Dutch's champion. The rippled version with intense seasoning is legitimately good, but the regular President's Choice ketchup chips, that's a different story. The Chatelain taste test found opinions were divided on the regular PC chips. Some testers thought the extra seasoning made the chips more sweet than savory, which is not what ketchup should taste like. ChickAdvisor reviews are mixed with customers complaining about quality control issues. One reviewer said, "Out of the 3 times I bought them, they were very flavorful once, less flavor the second time, and the third time, there was noticeably less flavor. Inconsistent quality is a major red flag." Another ChickAdvisor reviewer gave them a negative rating saying, "These are cheap for a reason. They are absolutely disgusting, and the sodium count is high. They can give you a bad headache from the salt content." Some Amazon reviews complained the chips were too ketchupy and had a weird taste that didn't match Heinz ketchup. President's Choice Trustpilot reviews are brutal overall, with complaints about the entire brand. One reviewer said PC products have taken such a nosedive they now purposely put in bad ingredients to make a quick buck. The Galen Weston family that controls Loblaws is worth over $8 billion. They own Superstore, No Frills, Shoppers Drug Mart, and more. Yet quality control on their chip products is inconsistent at best. The ingredients in PC ketchup chips include monosodium glutamate, artificial colors, and corn maltodextrin, the same chemical cocktail as most other brands. If you want PC ketchup chips, specifically get the loads of ketchup rippled version. The regular version is a gamble, where you might get great chips or might get a disappointing bag with inconsistent seasoning. Fifth is Great Value Ketchup Chips from Walmart Canada. This one comes with extra entertainment, because even Walmart's own CEO doesn't like these chips. In 2023, Walmart CEO Doug McMillon visited stores in Calgary and was offered Great Value ketchup chips to try. His response during the company's earnings call to Wall Street analysts, quote, "I'm out on that. I'm sure Canadians love it, but that's one private brand item that I'm not a fan of." When the CEO of the company selling the product publicly admits he doesn't like it during a financial presentation, something is seriously wrong. The chief financial officer even added that McMillon made some of us eat that, followed by audible chuckling from executives. The leadership team was literally laughing about how bad their own ketchup chips are. This is documented in Walmart's official earnings call transcript. The people running the company won't even eat what they sell you. Great Value is Walmart's house brand designed to undercut name brands on price. But Great Value ketchup chips have problems beyond just being cheap. They're a clear example of a company that doesn't understand Canadian food culture trying to profit from it anyway. Walmart is an American company headquartered in Arkansas. They don't have generations of experience with ketchup chip preferences like Canadian companies do. The 2019 Chicago Tribune Taste Test, where American journalists tried 13 brands, actually ranked Great Value in their top 3. But that's the problem. Americans have no baseline for what ketchup chips should taste like. Americans ranking Great Value highly confirms it doesn't taste like authentic Canadian ketchup chips. Canadian reviewers are far less impressed. The chips lack the vinegar punch that true ketchup chip lovers expect. The tomato flavor is too sweet and not tangy enough. The seasoning coverage is inconsistent. Great Value typically retails for around $1.50, making them among the cheapest options. But as the CEO himself admitted, you get what you pay for. Walmart makes over $600 billion annually. They could absolutely afford to develop quality ketchup chips. Instead, they created something their own CEO publicly rejects. Sixth is no-name ketchup chips from Loblaws. This is what rock bottom looks like in a chip bag. No Name is Loblaws' budget brand, sold at Superstore, No Frills, and Shoppers Drug Mart across Canada. The yellow packaging promises savings, but what you're really getting is a chemical experiment that barely qualifies as food. Multiple taste tests have crowned No Name as the worst ketchup chip in Canada. The Nanaimo food blog called them the worst. They described the flavor as way too vinegary, like someone at the No Name plant had leftover seasoning from salt and vinegar chips and dumped it into the ketchup vat. They even detected an almost fruity taste that made them wonder what else got thrown into the seasoning mix. The Nanaimo food blog concluded gross flavor, poor coverage, and bad texture consistency. Congratulations, No Name, you're the worst. Even that ridiculously cheap price point can't save you. The texture is equally terrible. The chips are thin and light, which sounds good until you realize too many of them are hard and crunchy, like they've been overcooked. They described No Name chips as anemic looking, with barely any seasoning coverage. They even look pale and lifeless. The No Name brand overall has a terrible reputation for quality. Consumer reviews on Pissed Consumer give similar Loblaws brands just 1.2 stars out of 5. Customers report burnt chips, discolored products, and bags that are practically inedible. No-name chips have a Walmart rating of just 2.5 stars from people importing them. Americans are rating our national chip flavor as below average. The ingredient list includes maltodextrin, a highly processed carbohydrate that spikes blood sugar faster than table sugar. It also contains artificial colors and monosodium glutamate that makes these chips mildly addictive despite tasting terrible. Loblaws, the company behind No Name, made over $50 billion in revenue last year. The Galen Weston family is worth over $8 billion, yet they sell Canadians garbage ketchup chips while real Canadian chip companies struggle to compete. No-name ketchup chips represent everything wrong with corporate food production. Maximum profit, minimum quality, zero respect for the customer. Seventh is Compliments ketchup chips from Sobeys. Compliments is Sobeys' house brand, sold at Sobeys, Safeway, and Freshco stores across Canada. Just like No Name is Loblaw's budget option, Compliments is supposed to be Sobeys' value alternative, but what they've created is genuinely one of the worst offerings in the entire market. The Eat North Comprehensive Ketchup Chip Taste Test removed Compliments from their bracket competition entirely because it scored significantly lower than all other chips. They didn't just lose, they were disqualified for being too terrible to compete. When a brand is so bad that food critics refuse to even rank it against others, you know you have a disaster. The taste panel at Eat North described Compliments ketchup chips with devastating simplicity. The chips seem too thick and they taste sort of weird, but at least they're crunchy. That's the nicest thing anyone said. At least they're crunchy? That's like saying, well, at least they're technically edible. Jamie Oliver has been doing work with Sobeys in recent years, and the Eat North review sarcastically hoped he had nothing to do with creating the Compliments chip product. When food critics hope celebrity chefs weren't involved because the product is so embarrassing, Sobeys has a massive problem. The Compliments brand overall has terrible consumer reviews. On Pissed Consumer, the brand has just 1.2 stars, with consumers describing products as garbage, subpar, and straight up not usable. One reviewer specifically complained about Compliments chips having a burnt taste with chips looking black around the edges. The ingredients in Compliments ketchup chips follow the same problematic pattern as other budget brands. Heavy on maltodextrin, light on actual tomato, loaded with artificial colors and flavor enhancers to mask the lack of real ingredients. What makes Compliments especially offensive is that Sobeys is a major Canadian grocery chain. They should understand Canadian taste preferences for ketchup chips. They've had decades to perfect their recipe. Instead, they created something professional taste testers won't even compare to other brands. Sobeys made over $30 billion in revenue last year. They absolutely have resources to create quality ketchup chips. They've simply chosen not to because they know budget-conscious consumers will buy whatever is cheapest. So what should you buy instead? Old Dutch ketchup chips are consistently rated the best by professional taste testers. They won the Eat North Challenge. Old Dutch has been making chips in Canada since 1954, with headquarters in Winnipeg, Manitoba. They understand Canadian taste because they are Canadian. Old Dutch nails the ketchup flavor by taking ketchup and making it better. They add extra spice to create a flavor similar to homemade spicy ketchup. The seasoning coverage is incredibly generous, with every chip almost crusty with coating. Miss Vicky's sweet and spicy ketchup chips offer a premium kettle-cooked option. They contain no artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Chatelaine magazine ranked them the best of the bunch. The crispiness is superior, and the sweet, spicy profile adds complexity. Covered Bridge chips from New Brunswick are the artisan choice. They're made in Heartland, home of the world's longest covered bridge. They use russet potatoes from local farms and cook in small batches. Their home-style ketchup tastes like concession stand fries with ketchup. If you must buy store brand, President's Choice loads of ketchup rippled chips are actually good. Multiple taste tests ranked them near the top. Just avoid their regular version, which has inconsistent quality. Read your ingredient lists. If you see tons of artificial colors, that's a red flag. If sugar is listed before tomato powder, the proportions are wrong. If the list is 20 chemicals long, the company is engineering addiction rather than making food. Support Canadian chip companies when possible. Old Dutch, Covered Bridge, and other regional makers are trying to preserve our ketchup chip tradition. Every bag you buy from them keeps Canadian jobs and food culture alive. Ketchup chips are one of the few snack foods that truly belongs to Canada. Americans think we're weird for loving them, but that's what makes them special. We shouldn't let American corporations and budget brands destroy this tradition. The 7 brands we covered represent the worst available. Lay's chemical additive cocktail, despite being most popular. Ruffles tooth-breaking texture. Pringles under-seasoned powder crisps. President's Choice inconsistent quality gamble. No-name vinegar disaster. Compliments disqualified embarrassment. Canada deserves better. Our beloved ketchup chips deserve better. Next time you're in the chip aisle, grab Old Dutch. Grab Miss Vicky's. Grab Covered Bridge. Support quality over quantity, Canadian over American, tradition over corporate shortcuts. Your next bag of ketchup chips is a vote for what Canada's food future looks like.